The Markovian soldier is a relatively straightforward and flexible build, focused mostly on the soldier mastery. This is definitely a build that you could use as a basis for some more complex mastery combinations if you wanted to. However, that said, it does stand up quite well on its own and is quite powerful in its own right. We achieved this build by focusing on what I'll call the passive attacks available within the soldier mastery. We put as many points as we can into those. We take advantage of these skill choices by combining them with a high attack speed. Essentially what that does is allows these skills to activate quite often. The more often they activate, the higher our damage output, and it proves quite effective. So the three skills to invest in for this build are Markovian's Advantage, and I'd recommend putting a full 8 points. Zolhan's Technique, again I'd recommend a full 8 points. And the third skill is Cadence. I would recommend at least 1 point, but the more you can afford to put there, the better. The reason we look to put a full 8 points into both of Markovian's and Zolhan's is due to their percentage chance to activate. The main goal of this build is to have these attacks activating as often as we can. This becomes the core of our damage output. If you're looking to focus more on the soldier mastery, a few other skills I'd recommend looking into are Fighting Spirit, Blade Arc, Will to Live, Overguard, or any of the passive skills along the bottom of the mastery. This build would also easily combine with the other masteries. For example, you could invest into Soleil's Witchfire from the Occultist mastery, or you could do this in combination with Fire Strike and Blast Shield from the Demolitionist mastery. If you check out the description below, I've included a link to a build put together in Grimcalc, which demonstrates the skill selections I've chosen for this build. In most cases, the attribute point investment for this build would just be a combination of your cunning and physique. More cunning if you want to focus on the damage output that you're dealing with this build, and of course a bit more physique if you want to focus on being more of a tank style character. I would recommend a melee weapon for this build, as it works quite well with the skills we've invested. The only other thing you really need to focus on is keeping your attack speed nice and high. As mentioned earlier on in the video, the higher we can have our attack speed, the better, as it works really well with the skills that we've invested in with this build. Of course, you don't have to push it so high that you sacrifice your survivability, but it is key to the overall concept of this character build. There's no real particular playstyle necessary for this build. In simply going in amongst the monsters and just doing your basic attack, these passive attacks, as we've coined them, will just be triggering quite often, and this will be just doing heaps of damage for you. One thing you may notice with this build is that your damage per second on your character sheet might not appear too high in some cases. The reason for this is that the skills we've invested in aren't accounted for in the damage per second calculation, so it might appear a little lower than you might expect. But rest assured that because these attacks are triggering quite often, your damage per second will actually be quite a bit higher than the on paper DPS that's suggested by your character sheet. Thanks very much for watching the video. Please feel free to leave a like or subscribe to my channel for more Grim Dawn videos in the future.